everybody, to Getting to Know Your Customer. I am Beth McManus-Lopez, and I manage the SIP Certified program. As the tasting room channel is suspended and it's going to take a little while to recover, today we're talking about how you are connecting with your customer online in their day-to-day social schedule. So please welcome Brandi Moody here. Brandi is an experienced marketer with a keen sense of burgeoning trends, consumer insights, and brand storytelling. She's going to explain how to understand your customer data, segment it accordingly, and use this information to empower your staff to heighten communication with customers. These actions lead to increased brand engagement, sales, and of course, a sustainable future. Welcome, Brandi.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound good.
All right, super. So we're gonna get started. Yeah, just like Beth said, I have years of marketing experience, and just to get started, a little bit about me. I am a co-founder of a group called Sage Insights, and everything we do is based on the ethos of research, discovery, and action. So as we go through this presentation, you'll kind of hear me use these terms a lot. And this is kind of the foundation of everything we do and how we translate these trends. So just to get started, let's start off with some research, a little bit of a data update. You know, right now, the homebody economy is really fueling tremendous growth in alcohol sales. We've seen, you know, year-over-year growth off-premise wine sales up 30%, total online off-premise alcohol up over 300%, and DTC sales at, you know, about plus 35%. So what does that mean for you as a business? Like, what is the action that you should take? And really, it's quite simple right now. It's make sure your online channels are user-friendly. And what I mean by user-friendly is that user experience. When someone logs on to your store, is it easy to navigate? Is all the information up to date? Do you have the correct vintages up? And also, you want to make sure that's secure. You know, with heightened, you know, security issues online, people really want to make sure that their sales are secure. And then I highly recommend investing in online advertising. If you're not doing that already, I think it's high time. It is high time to invest in social media ads. You can play around on things like Instagram and Facebook and do ads there, you know, as low as $5 if you want to play with that. So highly recommended that you start strategizing in that area right now. And let's get to the next slide. So let's do a little bit of a COVID pulse check. You know, I put this survey up. This was done by the San Francisco Chronicle, specifically in the food and wine section. And I think what really is evident in this survey is that 30% of the people polled want to stick to takeout. So we still have a lot of people in, this is specifically the Bay Area, which, you know, as we all know, is a big bulk of people that are wine consumers and that do travel to wine countries. So, you know, I think right now, what's really important is to have heightened sensitivity to customers' different shelter at home and COVID experiences. You know, everybody's got something different going on. Every county has different things going on. So I think first and foremost, you have to be really sensitive to that. And then also, you know, be transparent around your COVID practices. You know, what kind of safety precautions are you taking? Also, what have you done with your staff in this time? Have there been furloughs? Have there been, you know, a different distribution of labor? I think that's also really important to be transparent about, because, you know, there's just a heightened, everyone's a little bit more sensitive and a little bit more aware right now, and I think it's really important to take that into consideration. And then, you know, as tasting rooms open up, you know, what are you doing to not only assure your customers you're setting up protocols, but you're empowering your staff to enforce guidelines. You know, I say, you know, remember you have the right to refuse service. We are in the alcohol industry, and you know, we've trained staff, frontline staff, to not serve people that are overserved. And in the same respect, we need to empower them to, you know, enforce protocols so they don't feel at risk. I mean, let's be honest, these are people that are probably making $15 an hour and don't have the best medical insurance. So we want them to feel safe when things open back up. So that's a quick COVID pulse check. That I think it's important for us all to kind of think about, even though we're probably thinking about it a lot. So moving right along, you know, with Sage Insights, we recently did a major study. We interviewed people all across America. We did what's called ethnographic interviews, which we really did deep dives into their consumer behavior. And from that study, we interviewed people of all ages. And we did, you know, a big part of what we do, obviously, is beverage research. So we did really hardcore deep dives into their consumer behavior. And I think what's some really positive things that came out of that speak very well to what, you know, SIP Certified is doing is this major shift to conscious consumerism. You know, consumers they're aware of brand behavior. They know there's a heightened transparency about Amazon's treatment of workers. You know, technology is fueling this transparency, and consumers are absolutely using their buying power to influence social, political, and environmental issues. So, you know, if you're a brand who's rooted in this kind of sustainable lifestyle, I think this is really positive news that consumers are ready for that message to hit them. Also, I think what's really important to note in these culture shifts is that people are seeking positivity. I mean, that shouldn't be a secret to anyone. There's avalanches of bad news, political polarization. People are seeking out uplifting interactions and activities. We kind of see that this positivity will grow. You know, and a great example of I don't know if anyone's heard of Animal Crossing, but it's a really popular video game right now that adults are playing because it's just full of positivity from the colors, the design, and then also just the whole goal of the game is to raise a positive community. And I laugh because I think that has such a parallel to a sustainable lifestyle and sustainable businesses. And so if you get a chance, I think you should do a little deep dive into Animal Crossing. So let's move closer. Let's move a little bit more into customer segmentation. You know, I think it was about a month ago, I did I was on the wonderful SIP podcast with Matt Brain, and we really dug into the nuts and bolts of customer segmentation. And we really talked a lot about the metrics in which to use. So I highly recommend listening to that because the podcast is amazing if you're not listening to it already, but we really deep dive into this section. But in terms of customer segmentation, there's a few things that are important to, you know, to do in order to segment your customers. First of all, we want to talk about, you know, where they are. And this isn't just also where they live, but we also think about where do they shop and where do they visit, and then who they are. You know, are they men? Are they women? What their age is, and where they work, what they do for a living, and then what their purchase behavior is. You know, do they drink red wines? Do they drink white wines? Are they more pink wine people? Are they bargain hunters? And then why do they purchase these products? And that's kind of how they connect to brands, you know, based on kind of brand messaging, design, and all of those things put together. So it's really important, I think, if you're a brand of any size, for you to go through this exercise of segmenting everybody and really focusing on messaging that hits them accordingly. You know, it's right now, I think I've heard time and time again on webinars, go to where they are, you know, be it online, in the grocery store, and then also, you know, as part of their lifestyle. We don't talk about that enough in terms of, you know, that bottle being on the table or in the backyard, or, you know, kind of putting that bottle and your brand into context where these customers are. So Wine Intelligence published a study outlining 6 consumer segments in wine. And I'd like to use those to kind of walk through these different strategies that can be used based on these different segments. But I'd also like to point out that, as you know, SIP certified wines, we're well aware that these wine, the average price is a little obviously over the national average. So when we go through these, I would like everyone to think about, you know, how you know, your price point is a little bit more and how that will fit into these lifestyles. So let's take a look. So let's first start with engaged explorers. You know, it's funny, I posted the thing from the SF Chronicle, the poll, and I feel like this demographic really speaks to the Bay Area. You know, this is young, fun, ready for adventure, and super into trying new wines, regions, and producers. These are consumers who like to travel to wine regions, are likely to spend more. I do think that these engaged explorers tend to live in more urban areas like Los Angeles or the Bay Area, and are a little bit more eco-minded. You know, their brand kind of cohort and the different brands they interact with. Eater is a great example of somewhere where they kind of validate these recommendations. And when they're exploring, it's like, this is definitely the demographic that wormholes through information. You know, they read an article on Eater about a producer, and then they're more apt to kind of go down the Google wormhole and look that person up. You know, obviously this is kind of the group that shops at Whole Foods. So there is this baseline kind of understanding of, you know, fair trade, organic, and that kind of terminology is not foreign to them. And I think this is definitely your Patagonia Subaru crew. You know, there's definitely this allegiance to brands that are doing good for their community. So I think that's important to note. And I think this is an excellent group to kind of base a lot of marketing on. And I put in Drinking with Esther. Esther Mobley is the wine writer for the SF Chronicle, and I just adore her newsletter. And I also think what's great is that most of the wine that she recommends is over this $20 price point, and getting up and averaging like 35. So it's not, again, foreign to this group to start to look at wines that are much higher than the national average, which I think is a very positive thing. You know, and some action plans for this group. I mean, honestly, these tasting kits that people are putting together, I think are wonderful, and I think are things that should live beyond COVID. You know, offer these tasting kits in your online store with evergreen video content. And what I mean by evergreen is that it's a video that if I opened in the spring or the winter or the summer, it has the same content, and it's not specific to a season. And that'll save you a little time and money, I think, in the long run, and let that live up there with these tasting kits. You know, you can change them as the year goes, but I think to be on the safe side, it's okay to do evergreen content. And, you know, use this to really talk about your winemaking practices, your commitment to sustainability, and how it's shaping your community. Again, looking at a brand like Patagonia that resonates with this group, I think it's important to create messaging around what you're doing for your community. So yeah, I think that's important. And also, I want to just point out with these tasting kits, I know people are like, well, you know, I'm opening bottles, and, you know, am I getting rid of wine that it could have been sold? And I think you have to look at it and crunch numbers in terms of bottled poured in the tasting room. You've now had almost, I guess, 77 days that you haven't poured wine in your tasting room. So when you're looking at bottles poured that you normally pour, I think it's okay to reallocate that wine to these tasting kits, and not worry about, you know, losing inventory. So the premium brand Suburban, I think we all know this customer pretty well. They skew older, they know what they like, they know a lot about wine. They're not huge spenders, but they can be and be diehard loyalists at any price in wine country. You know, this is the group that they are a little older, they are diehards, and they want a little bit more white glove service. They want to feel special. I think that this is the group that you need to reach out on the phone with, and give them special offers that really do make them feel special. And also, we talk so much in the wine industry about this ever elusive millennial, and oh, they're not drinking enough wine, or oh, they've got too much of a choice. And these are their parents. And I really think that it's high time to, offer packs that these people can share with their younger generations to encourage this new consumer base. And I also think in terms of sustainability, this group loves technical kind of information. And I think it's great to offer them kind of nuggets, kernels of information, if you will, about these like more technical things in terms of sustainability. Anything, again, that they can feel special, that they feel they've gotten something different from everyone else. And then we have contingent treaters, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on them just because they don't drink a ton, but when they do, they don't care how much it costs and are looking for an engaging origin story to tell at one of their cocktail parties. Again, party packs. This is great for theme packs and bundles. If you want to partner with a local purveyor and add olive oil in this pack, this kind of like gets them used to that party atmosphere that they're used to. I mentioned Veuve Clicquot is in their brand cohort, and Sprinkles. Sprinkles it's a cupcake company, and they're doing DIY packs right now, kind of build your own at home. So and this is the kind of group that when you go to their cocktail party, they're gonna really drill in your head that, like, oh my gosh, have you tried the Sprinkles cupcakes? Well, let's move wine into their mouth. Let's talk about, your brand. And I think in terms of sustainability, this is a group that, once they learn that like a falcon can be, pest management control, they're going to tell that story to everyone. And so I think like, marketing collateral that tells your unique story, sustainability practices so that they can share with their friends are so important. Cultural capital is huge with this group. So think about putting those on postcards to send to them. Think about coaster packs. Again, this is the party life, and how do you fit into their cocktail life? So we have here the social media natives, wine newbies. I think this is part of that daunting millennial group that people talk about that we should never be afraid of, because they're young, they're new to wine, and they rely heavily upon recommendations and valued information. They are online. They're looking at everything. So this is the group that, rather than Google your business, they're going to look you up on Instagram first. They're going to read your Google reviews. They're a little bit more apt to use, I didn't put Yelp on here because I feel like Yelp, there's a lot of transparency to how Yelp is a pay-to-play kind of service right now. So, what's important with this group, the way to connect with them is you've got to do an online audit of all your channels. Make sure you're responding to customer comments, reviews, and, posting compelling content. I think, I have two things. One, Spotify playlists for brands, I think, are totally fun. When it first started happening, I thought, oh, that's such a novelty. And now I've got 3 different brands that I'm listening to their playlists pretty regularly. So, I think that's a great little action item. And then in terms of Reddit, the other day I was sniffing around on Reddit about wine information as I was preparing for this. And I noticed that, on Reddit, there's such a kind of quick response from people. And someone posted, does anyone know of any tasting rooms available, open in Lodi? And a tasting room person that worked in Lodi commented, hey, we are not open right now. I work in a tasting room. They didn't say which one, which felt even more kind of authentic. And they mentioned that they'd be happy to give them a list of places that they could look online to buy some wine. So I think Reddit is a new place for people to kind of engage with the customer without being overexcited about boasting your brand. It's more of a conversation. So I think with this group, it really is important to engage on social and also be authentic on social. Tell those stories so that they can recommend to their friends with confidence. And I think in terms of sustainability, again, we have these overarching themes that we have conscious consumers, we have this transparency about labor. So I think that will absolutely resonate if you're telling those stories online. And I'll get into bargain hunters. I mean, this is a huge segment, but again, budding conscious consumers, they drink the most wine, they're fervent about it, they appreciate value. I think with them, I joke that this demo is the kind of demo where this house runs on coffee, wine, and Amazon Prime, and they're value driven. But it's important to convey that value also comes from, a great business. They'll feel better about maybe spending a little bit more on a business that they know is they can lessen a carbon footprint. They're a group that, because they're bargain hunters, have been buying stuff online constantly, and they're starting to see like the boxes. So I think it's important with them is to really drive home buying in bulk saves money, lessens a carbon footprint, providing promo codes for them. I really think the challenge with this group is moving them out of Trader Joe's and getting them to kind of really think about where their wine comes from rather than them buying strictly for price. And I'm going to wrap it up here with the kitchen casuals. This is a tough crowd because they don't drink wine as much. They, don't really stray from what they know, and they're not super interested in wine as much as they are with beers, spirits, and hard seltzers. But I think what's really great with them is, again, with these large kind of cultural shifts, the language of like they travel in Starbucks. Starbucks pioneered the fair trade movement really for the masses. Chipotle has realigned like their entire brand messaging to be about them using fresh ingredients. So I think what's important for wineries, especially the sip wineries, is to drive home the fact that cooking with organic, locally sourced food begs to be paired with these types of wines. That was a quote that Laura, who's the CEO of Riverbench, gave to me a few weeks ago when we were talking, and it really resonated with me because we have so many people that are getting into kitchen life that are, so excited about cooking, but they're not putting that final piece of the puzzle on their table, which is, having the beverage be local, organic, sustainable. So I think there's a real opportunity for people to fill that space and to drive that messaging home with them. So, just to wrap it up, here are some really key takeaways that I think are important is, first of all, know your customer. We've gone through these customer segments, and perhaps like a few of them have jumped out at you and you're like, oh yes, the premium brand Suburban, that is our customer. Like, know them, know them, know them. I think that's the most important thing. Understand where they live. Again, all of those kinds of factors into their segment. Also, meet them where they are, online and off. I think what's really important right now is that there are a lot of people who are connecting with family online. And actually, Beth and I were talking about this before the webinar started, that there's kind of this a little bit of a fatigue around just like a regular old Zoom or FaceTime with family, and we're starting to see a few more theme kind of events. So if you've got people in your wine club who, as I said, have younger kids, or friends, by all means, they should be meeting online together to try your wines and talking about them because they're not meeting in the tasting room. So I think that's a really huge opportunity. Also, it's really important that you take pride in knowing that your business and farming practices are at the forefront of major cultural shifts. As we've said, like there's just this heightened awareness of local, organic, sustainable. These are terms that are now in the masses, in everyone's collective consciousness. And I think it's really amazing that if you are a business that operates with these principles, take pride of knowing that and, showcase that across all of your channels and highlight the good. I put this photo in because this is a scholarship program that SIP does. And I'm sure a lot of you out there with businesses do a lot of amazing things in the community. And I can't stress enough how much that resonates with consumers. So if you're doing things like that in the community, you need to highlight it. Highlight the good. Again, people are seeking positivity. And this kind of messaging, I think, is so much more important than it's ever been. So, with that, I thank you for coming. And, as we know, there's a lot of SIP training guides online. Should you want more information on, SIP messaging. But that's about it from me. Beth, do we have any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question that just came in. And if anyone else has questions, please throw them in the little box. Brandi, always interesting, so good. So we do have a question from Tamara. It says, if you're a small wine business that doesn't have the budget to spend on consumer insight research, what is a good first step in assessing who your customer is generally?
I think this is where your tasting room staff and your admin staff really come into play. I think this is a really great opportunity to sit down with them and kind of look at your numbers, your average order sales and things like that, and absolutely talk through with them who these people are. They'll be able to tell you without any kind of marketing savvy or whatever that, oh gosh, those are all, yuppies or whatever name they'll call them. Those are all the boomers, or, they'll be able to talk through that with you. And I think that's absolutely your frontline staff is how you can do that without a budget.
Wonderful. Let's see. Well, if there's any other questions, please pop them in. I'm definitely seeing some thank yous pop up. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And Brandi, like I said before, you're always just so fascinating to listen to. I love talking to you about marketing. We are going to send out an email to everyone who attended today with the recording of this. It also includes the podcast that you referenced earlier that you were on with Matt, so you can listen to that as well, plus another couple of really good marketing focused podcasts that we did recently, so some more fun content. And then another thing to keep in mind is this is the first of our 30-minute webinar marketing series. We have another one coming up on July 15th, and that's all about social media. I'm really excited about that. We're going to deep dive into hashtag campaigns and also video, talking about whether you should be going live or pre-recorded, the best time to use it, the best platforms. So definitely look for a registration link for that as well. And again, thanks, Brandi. Wonderful to have you on.
Good morning. Have a great day, everybody.